In 1976, Mattel passed up on the rights to exclusively produce toys based on the Star Wars movies, which looking back now is probably the biggest mistake in toy history. They already had Barbie, but they really wanted to enter the boys' action figure market, and after a deal fell through to produce toys based on the Conan the Barbarian movie, Mattel decided to make steps to produce their own line of figures. So today, we're going to take a look at how He-Man and the Masters of the Universe didn't just become a hit, it completely changed the way toys were sold. Welcome to Created by the Butler, where everything is handpicked for collectors. I'm Stephen, and you're being served by the Butler. The idea for what would become Masters of the Universe really started to take shape inside Mattel, with designers like Mark Taylor and Roger Sweet playing a huge role. Sweet created 3 concept designs, a Barbarian, a Space Warrior and a Soldier. Sweet then worked with Mark Taylor on the Barbarian design, and legend has it that one of these designs were tagged as He-Man, the origin of the name, although this story's always been a bit contested. After many design changes, Mattel finally launched the He-Man toy line to the world in 1981, and the first 8 figures released were He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Stratos and Teela for the heroes, and Skeletor, Beastman, Merman and Zodak as the forces of evil, although Zodak was sometimes said to be neutral. These figures come cleverly packaged with a mini comic book, which gave them some backstory and built a whole world around them. The first 4 comic books produced for these figures were written by Donald F. Glutt and illustrated by Alfredo Alcala, and were a lot different to the He-Man story that most of us know and remember from the cartoons. He-Man, for example, was a warrior from a jungle tribe in Eternia, living in a post-apocalyptic world. There was no Prince Adam, no secret identity or transformation into He-Man, although he was still the protector of the secrets of Castle Grayskull from the forces of Skeletor. In 1982, DC Comics started to produce the mini comic books that came with the figures along with the standard comic book series. And this is where the Prince Adam story originates, in DC Comics Presents number 47, which featured a story called From Eternia with Death, where Superman actually teams up with He-Man. Yep, you heard that right, Superman teams up with He-Man. The story also introduced Adam being part of the royal family of Eternia and his faithful cat, Cringer. But the iconic Sword of Power and the By the Power of Grayskull transformation into He-Man still wasn't part of that story. Instead, Adam and Cringer had to travel to the Cavern of Power, where he would be transformed into He-Man by the Sorceress, who was then called the Goddess. But what made He-Man different to many other toys at the time wasn't just the figures, it was the world and the lore being built around it. It was a true design masterstroke, and that idea of building a world around toys is what led to the next big step. By now, Mattel knew that if they wanted this toy line to truly take off, they needed something much bigger than just some comic book stories. They quickly realised an animated series would be the way to go, and after pitching the idea to a number of animation studios and TV companies, a deal was done with Filmation, and in 1983, the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe animated series landed on our TV screens. And who could forget that iconic theme tune?
Grayskull!
Before the cartoon, He-Man's backstory was a lot darker and much more brutal. In partnership with Mattel, Filmation brought us a much cleaner, kid-friendly mythology. They borrowed parts from the previous comic books and truly established their own story elements, such as Castle Grayskull being the source of power, the transformation sequence using the Sword of Power and that iconic By the Power of Grayskull. Skeletor was now the main recurring villain, the heroic royal family connections, the addition of Orko to add some comic relief, and much more. But this wasn't just another animated series or cartoon. This was one of the first shows created specifically to support a toy line. It was essentially a 20-minute advert, thanks to some relaxing of regulations around kids' TV at the time. And as soon as the cartoon came along, the toy line exploded.
And I became He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe.
Each episode gave the toys a real personality and followed a pretty simple structure. It was He-Man versus Skeletor, good versus evil. But there was always something else that came at the end.
But trees are living things. And when you respect a tree, you show that you care about all life. Life is a
They always included a life lesson or a moral, a lesson for kids watching, themes such as honesty, teamwork, responsibility, and doing the right thing. These morals were added on to the end of each episode to satisfy the concerns that many parents had at the time that the He-Man cartoons existed just to sell more toys to children. And although they were probably right, they couldn't argue the fact that now, as children, we're all learning valuable life lessons. And let's be honest, even though the cartoon did exist to sell the toys, Filmation often changed things. Some of the toys barely appeared in those original cartoons, while others were toned down and completely reinvented. Either way, as soon as a new character appeared, we were off to the shops to grab it. And that is the point where everything clicked, because now the toys and the show were working together. The cartoon wasn't just supporting the toys were the product, and the show was the marketing. And once that worked, other toy companies jumped on the bandwagon.
You win this time, He-Man!
After He-Man landed on our TV screens, we suddenly had Transformers, Thundercats and Mars, to name but a few. But like everything, it didn't last forever. The original Filmation series for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe ran from 1983 to 1985, and during that time they produced a whopping 130 episodes. But due to changing tastes and oversaturation of too many characters, kids moved on and the magic started to fade.
I'll never get my magic back! Ah!
And as sales for He-Man toys continued to decline, the cartoon continued to run, mainly thanks to syndication and reruns. And more importantly, the cartoon became more culturally important than the actual figures themselves. But the impact of He-Man didn't just come from the toys or the cartoons, it came from when it happened. With the relaxation of rules and regulations around kids' TV at the time, it became much easier for shows like this to exist. And even all these years later, after many reboots and different versions of He-Man since then, it's the Filmation version that remains the definitive version of He-Man and Masters of the Universe. It's a toy line supported by a cartoon, working together to sell a whole world, which is still being used today. From cartoons to movies, that same formula is everywhere. One example of this is why I believe Grogu's continued companionship with the Mandalorian continued well beyond Season 2, to sell more toys. Just have a look at how many Grogu toys there are on shelves. So He-Man was never just a toy or just a cartoon. It was a blueprint, a true masterstroke of design and marketing. It was a way of selling toys that completely changed the industry and kids' entertainment. Not to mention just how good the fight for Eternia was, and still is. Let me know in the comments below, did you have any He-Man figures? What are your favourite memories of the cartoons or figures at the time? Thanks for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I truly appreciate that. I'm Stephen, and you're being served by the Butler.
Until we meet again, you are.